This is preparation for the Unit 5 test. We're going to do one of each type of problem that you may encounter on the test. This requires a graphing calculator or a web page or an app that uses a graphing calculator. Our first one is y equals x squared plus 1. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to put the function into our calculator in order to make the graph. And once we have the graph, then we can look at the table. You'll want to write down the table for each problem and then graph from there. So really the calculator is doing most of the work. So you're going to turn on your calculator and press the y equals button. Then you have to find the x button. Press that and find your squared button, which looks just like x squared on the screen right now. You'll press that one, so you should have x squared on your y equals screen, and then you're just going to press plus and 1. So this is probably one of the easiest ones to put into your calculator. You're going to get a parabola for this one, and you'll press second graph in order to look at your table. So I'm going to copy down my table that I see. Your values do not have to be the same as my values. And, your table is your table. So if you need more points than this, that is totally fine. We like to say do at least 5 points for each table. Again, that's a least value, okay? As you can see, there's a pattern for this one with the x's and also with the y's. I'm going to come over and graph this one. -2, +5, -1, +2, 0. Oh, that should be 0, 1, not 0, 7. One, 2, and 2, 5. This should look familiar to you. Obviously your graph would hopefully be better than mine. You got to make sure you get that bottom point in there. I didn't do a very nice job of that. Once you have put your points and made your parabola, make sure to label it. And then you're all set. The next one is a square root. Y equals the square root of x minus 2. So for this one, you'll open your you'll turn on your calculator, press y equal, press the second x squared key. So you're going to look for this key, and you'll press the second function first, and then press this. That will give you the square root on your y equals screen. After you do that, you find the x key, put in the x, minus 2, and don't forget to close your parentheses. It's very important. If you have a parenthesis on there, one that looks like this, you got to close it with the other one. So you'd have x minus 2 and then close it. Otherwise, you may get an incorrect graph and an incorrect table. So it's very important that you remember to close it. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and copy down our table for this one, and you're going to notice something very interesting. Okay, I'm starting at -1 and 0, and for both of these, you may get something that says error or undefined, something like that. That's okay. Actually, we want to see that. We want to see at least one value that has an error, because that's going to help us as we graph. If you noticed before that my function, the line for it, had, and you can skip numbers too. See, I went 4 and then 6. That's fine. The function had lines at either end because it extended forever. Well, look at this one. This one definitely does not extend forever. Because these errors tell us that nothing happens there. Nothing happens at -1. Nothing happens at 0. Okay, the first point that we get a non-error is 2, and that's 2, 0. So we can go ahead and plot that point. 3, 1, 4 and 1.4. Oop, that's not really... That one's a tough one. You're more than welcome. Obviously, yours would be better looking than mine. You're more than welcome to stick with numbers that are nice and even, okay, like 6.2. Or you can, find ones that are a 0.5, or you can do your best to find 1.4, or whatever it may be. I'm going to connect my lines. Now, you want to make sure when you draw your line that you don't draw it so it starts going down again, because that's not what happens. This graph is always going up forever in that direction. So we don't want it to go down at all. As you can see on mine, right here, I go a little below the line. Okay, you definitely don't want to do that either. It's important that you make sure you're nice and accurate, as accurate as you can be. Okay, with a graph like this. Now, don't forget, at the end, you need to label it y equals the square root of x minus 2. Also, another important thing is to make sure that your square root symbol extends all the way to the end of your number. Okay, otherwise, we may think that you're graphing y equals the square root of x and then minus 2, and that is going to look different. That graph is going to look different. So make sure that that you write it correctly. The next one is y equals 2 plus x cubed. So this, when you enter it into your calculator, you're going to press the y equals button. You enter 2 just like normal and plus, and then you can go ahead and press the x key. Now, to get the 3, you can either do a caret, which looks like this. You can do caret and then 3, regular 3, or you can press the math button, and then you can go down to number 3 and hit enter, and that will give you x cubed. All right? Either way you do it, you should come up with a table. Looks somewhat like this. And then we're just going to go ahead and graph that. And that's going to be a very interesting table, or a very interesting graph for us. -2, -6, -1, +1, 0, 2, 1, 3, and then 2, 10. And this one is going to look something like that. Okay? And we're just going to label it y equals 2 plus x cubed. This one is y equals 3 plus the cubed root of x. Again, a little bit more difficult to enter into the graphing calculator. You're going to press y equals 3 plus, then you need to press your math key. You go down to number 4, which will show you the cubed root. It'll look just like that. You're going to press enter and then find the x key. You're all set when you do that, and then you're going to press second graph to go to your table, just like you normally would. We've done that many, many times. And copy down your table. Now, notice that I went all the way to -8 to begin, because that was one of the first ones I saw that was back far, that had a nice, clean, crisp value for y, instead of, something like 4.2 or 4.3, as we'll see when you get up to +2. So I picked -8. I went ahead and did -2, which is 1.7. I don't know. That one's kind of a tough one for me to graph. It may not be for you. You can certainly pick that value if that's what you want. Again, a lot of these are now clean numbers. So -8, +1, -2, 1.7, 0.7. Oop, that's not high enough, but negative 1, positive 2, 0, 3, 1, 4, and 8, 5. Okay, and the great thing about the graphing calculator is you can take a look and see, okay, this is obviously not going to end up looking like this. If you look at your graphing calculator, you will see the shape that it's supposed to take, and that then you can make sure, okay, my points do kind of look like that, and I can go ahead and do this, and that's approximately what it should look like. Again, hopefully yours is a little bit better than mine since you're using a pencil and not your finger. Go ahead and label it. Very important. Next. This one is absolute value. Y equals 4 plus the absolute value of x. This is a fun one because this is the first graph that when you draw it might be a little bit easier. I know it's easier for me to actually graph it. You're going to press your Y equals button, 4 plus, and then to get the absolute value, you need to press your math button and press the over so you can get to the number tab. The first one, it's already highlighted, it says ABS. That means absolute value. So you're going to just go ahead and hit enter. Now, your screen will either have, for the Y equals ABS, and then this going on. Oh, you're going to have the 4 plus first. ABS, or you're going to have Y equals 4 plus, and then your 2 lines for absolute value. Either way, you have the right thing, so you're all set to go ahead and press enter. Or first you got to put your X in there, I'm sorry. So you go and you find your X key. Now, if yours said ABS and had a parenthesis, you got to close it. You got to find the other parenthesis button and close your parenthesis after your X. Otherwise, if you had the 2 bars, you're all set. We're going to go ahead and copy down our table. -2, 6, -1, 5, 0, 4, 1, 5, and 2, 6. Again, just like with our quadratic, our x squared, the function that had an x squared in it, this one has a pattern just like that. So that's pretty cool. So usually we can kind of figure out if we did something right or if we did something wrong. Again, mine are not as nice as yours should be. Nice and crisp on the lines. Okay, so this one, obviously it's not a parabola because we don't have those points that would make it look more like a dip. Okay, this one is exactly the way it looks. It's a V. Y equals 4 plus the absolute value of x. Make sure that you label it. And now you've done all 5 problems, and you should be all ready for the test.